audio issues. I don't know what happened. I guess I was recording with my headset instead of my microphone, and it kind of screwed things up there. Alright, I'm going to run through these games real quick. Only a 4-game slate on DK and a 3-game slate on FanDuel. So they left off that last game, Sacramento State and Arizona State. So I'm going to run through those real quick here. Let's see. Okay. First game of the night is Rice and Wake Forest. Rice is a really slow team coached by a guy that believes in 2 tight ends, loves throwing to the tight end, and of course Wake runs really fast. Two different tempos here. Let's see, the Rice QB is Wiley Green. He's a pro style guy. He's 5,700, so he's cheap. Do project him for about 20 points or 3 touchdowns. So, you know, he could have a good game there, but I don't love him. The Rice running backs, Aston Walter is the starter. He had a pretty good game starting out last week against Army. Then Nashawn Ellerby came in the second half and had over 100 yards. So could see both of these guys. They're kind of expensive on DK, so I don't love them there. And if they're behind, you know, that really hurts their value. Wide receivers, Austin Trammell's the big target guy. 7 last week, caught 4 of them. 5.7 yards a target, which isn't crazy. And he's only 5,800, so it's cheap. If you want a good solid receiver, it's probably him. Other guy I wanted to talk about, Jordan Myers. He's a big physical pass catching tight end. It's 3,600, 4K on FD. I like that a lot. It's really cheap, especially against a team that gave up so much to wide receivers last week. 94.7 DK points, and that is going to be running tempo the whole game. Rice is going to be, you know, trying to slow things down, but they love throwing to the tight end. So him and Jager Bull is the other tight end. He's kind of a bigger guy. I don't love him as much. And Brad Rosner's the slot. If you need someone else to play, it's him. All right, let's look at Wake Forest. Wake Forest, quarterback by Jamie Newman, dual threat guy. He's scored tons of points last week against Utah State. Team total 44, and I love him a lot, especially if they can keep this game close. They have at running back Cade Carney. He got 43% of the carries last week, and should see about the same this week. He's a big bruising guy, and I love him. He's the main back there. The other guy gets 19% of the carries, Christian Beal-Smith. Like him as well, especially if the game blows out. He's 4,500, so yeah, he can put up big numbers if he's in the game longer. So I like him. Wide receivers, they have 1 million. Couple of the ones that I like this week are I like Scotty Washington. He's their red zone target, so he's going to get quite a bit of play there, especially with the 44 total. And Sage Surratt also, you know, he was actually the basketball player of the year in North Carolina when he was a senior in high school. So he's very athletic, and yeah, those 2 guys are my favorites. The other 3 listed here, I mean, Hinton had 11 targets last week. He's just not going to give you the big play. He's 6 yards a target, but you know, you don't need much. It's not a great defense or anything. Freudenthal also a tight end here, 3,800, so he can give you some points. He's a goal line threat as well. On this next game here, we have William and Mary and Virginia. William and Mary going with 2 quarterbacks this week, most likely, and Hollis Mathis and Kilton Anderson. I don't have them scoring any points this week, so I don't see, there's no point in playing those two guys. Hollis Mathis is more of the dual threat guy, so if you want to take a chance, I guess it'd be on him. But I don't love him. The wide receivers, actually the running backs for William and Mary, Owen Wright and Albert Funderburk. They split carries and they're going to be behind, so don't play them. The wide receivers, they have two that are decent. Lackland Pitts is the tight end. He's 3K on DK and 4K on FD, so you can take a chance there. And Jordan Lowry is the big play wide receiver. He's 3,100 on DK and 4,500 on FD. So those are the two guys I'd go with, but I don't love that. Virginia, their quarterback Bryce Perkins, played him a lot last year. He's a dual threat guy, and it's a 47 team total. Now, he could only play 3 quarters there, so just be aware of that. But if he plays the whole game, he can have a pretty big score. I see him coming in under that projected total. It may need to be changed just a little bit, but I like him to score some points. Let's see the other guys I'll look at here. Running backs, Wayne Taulapapa is 5,100. You don't hear of many running backs named Wayne. When's the last one that was good? Can't think of one, but he's a good running back. He's 5,100. Took 30% of the carries last week, and does get some targets out of the backfield as well. So he's starting. I think he can put up a big score. PK Kyer is the backup, and he only got 15% of the carries last week. No targets, but he'll be in there quite a bit because it's William and Mary. 7,400 on FD and 4,400 on DK. Lamont Atkins is the third string back, 3,800 on DK. I love that, and 47 team total there, so he's probably going to get in the game. Virginia wide receivers, my favorite is Joe Reed. I've been playing him going back to last year. He's 5,600 and a big play guy, even though the yards per target don't show it. So he may be lower owned, especially in that game. A lot of people flocking to the Wake Forest side and the Marshall and Boise State side. I like him. Hassis Dubois, also 6,300 on DK, 8,600. He can make big plays as well. But yeah, I like those guys. Let's move on to the next game here. It's Marshall and Boise State. Marshall QB Isaiah Green. He's a much more of a passer than a runner. He's 5,500 on DK and 7,900 on FD. They're going to be behind, so he's going to be throwing quite a bit. He's definitely worth a shot in GPPs. He's 5,500. Probably my favorite cheap quarterback if you're going to go that way. And Boise State gave up a ton through the air last week. So you definitely see that happening. The running backs for Marshall, we have two, Tyler King and Brendan Knox. Knox got the 2 touchdowns last week, and I don't know if they're gonna stay with giving him the ball at the goal line, but maybe you lean that way. They're the same price, so. Wide receivers for Marshall, Armani Levias is the tight end. He's 3,500, so it's pretty cheap. 29 team total. Can see him catching one. Another guy that made a couple big plays yesterday was last week was Talik Keaton. Had a punt return for a touchdown. He's 3,400. He's a true freshman, I believe. Maybe just a freshman. I don't know. But he's a good wide receiver. Taven Richardson's a transfer. He's 3,400. He can make some big plays as well. Had 3 targets last week. So I like him. as well. That's pretty much for that side, but there's some value there since Marshall's going to be throwing the ball quite a bit if they're behind against Boise. If you see that, see it going that way. And for Boise, at quarterback, Hank Bachmeier, 7,400 on DK and 9K on FD. It's a bargain, 39 team total. And yeah, I don't see him failing, especially off the big week last week. Seems like a pretty good play. Best value on the slate are these Boise running backs. Robert Mahone got 44% of the carries last week. He's 4,700 this week. 10.2 on FD. I'd still play him over there. To be honest, that's a big savings there between the two. Andrew Van Buren is actually the backup. He's 5K. So if you want to play him, you see it as a blowout, you can play him as well. And George Halani's the third string. He gets more targets. He got 3 targets last week. So you can play any of these guys if you have to, especially if you see it as a blowout. So I like those. Those are the best values on the slate, especially to fit everything else in. They're going to be high owned, but it's good chalk, I believe. Let's see. The Boise State receivers, the big play guy that from last week that looked really good, and actually last year as well, Khalil Shakir, he's 5,100, and he had 10 targets last week, so him and Bachmeier probably have a good rapport. Next guy is CT Thomas. He's too cheap, 5,300 on DK and 7,900 on FD. 9 targets last week, 11.4 yards per target. He only caught half of them, but still, that's still pretty good against Marshall. So did that against Florida State last week. Achillian Butler, also cheap. John Bates, cheap, tight end. Had 6 targets last week. Big athletic guy, so he can definitely make some plays. I like him a lot. Let's move on to this last game here. Jaden Daniels, 6,700, freshman, and playing Sacramento State. They shouldn't have to throw that much, so and he may only play 3 quarters. I don't love him either. He's kind of cheap as well, so play at your own risk there. Could be GPP worthy. Benjamin, the running back, he probably will play maybe a half, but as you can remember from Etienne last week, you can make those points quick, sometimes less than a half. The 2 backups here are listed as well, so they'll probably get in. Their receivers, it's a pretty tight bunch there. Brandon Ayuk made some big plays last week. 7 targets, 4 catches made, had over 100 yards, had 1 screen pass he turned into a touchdown. Really like him. Frank Darby, the other big play guy, had 4 targets, 3 catches last week as well. Kyle Williams, the possession guy, so he can make some plays as well. Definitely like those 3 guys. They're relatively cheap against a inferior opponent that's probably not going to put up any points. Sacramento State at quarterback, Kevin Thompson, don't play him. They're going to be behind. He does have some talent, so 5,200. I like him better than the 2 William and Mary guys, so that's where I'd rank him. Isaiah Green, and then Kevin Thompson, the 2 William and Mary guys. So I'd go with that. I could see playing him in GPP if you had to, if you needed the salary. But you can just throw one of those Boise State running backs in there and probably get the same amount of points, to be honest. Let's see. The Sacramento State running backs, I have 3 of them. Don't play them. They're going to be way behind. So don't play those guys. Pierre Williams, the only receiver I'd play, 6,100, so pricey too. But I'll mostly stay away from him unless it's a GPP. lineup. I guess Johnny Rucker's also a big play guy. He's 3K, so you could do that as well. But yeah, that's it, guys. As always, just let me know if you have any questions in the Discord, and hopefully this thing recorded this time, and I'm gonna get to work on Saturday's slate. So yeah, just let me know. Thanks, guys.